pushing all content uploaded to all websites through some sort of draconian content ID filter is very scary. Certainly, those machines are not going to be able to detect the fair use argument well. And so, this is the problem with centralized silos in Web 2.0. So this is why Web 3 is emerging.
Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. It's wonderful to have you back. Look, this is an interview you're not going to want to miss because we're going to talk about the censorship and fascist tactics we're seeing unfolding all over social media platforms. And I want to start by reading this, guys. It's the First Amendment to our Constitution. It goes like this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. You know what's not in that, guys? Nowhere in there does it say that corporations can't act fascistly and take away our free speech. I don't think it's legal, but they're doing it. And it's really cool when a CEO reaches out to me and says, hey, we should talk about this. And I agree. I have Minds.com CEO Bill Ottman on the line. I want to welcome him right now. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Look, the First Amendment is the most important amendment. I guess the second is the most important because without the second, then we don't have a first, right? We can't protect our first. But these fascist corporations are taking it away. They're taking away our free speech. No better example than Facebook and YouTube. And this latest thing, Gab's hosting provider is moving to shut down the alt-right social network. This is, of course, the Daily Beast calling it alt-right social network. It's just a social network. But they're being targeted because Robert Bowers posted quote-unquote anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and then went and shot up a synagogue. And now we're told it's Gab's fault, when, Bill, you know as well as I do that this stuff is taking place on Facebook and on YouTube all day, every day. And I don't see anybody shutting them down.
Absolutely. I mean, what we know is that censorship does not stop violence and extremism. It amplifies it. This is documented in dozens of peer-reviewed studies. So while bad ideas can exist, they do exist on all of these social networks. There's not a reason in with regards to data or empirical evidence that we can understand that censorship of these ideas is going to be the way to solve them.
Well, I don't think that they actually care about solving those issues. I think that they care about demonizing people who don't agree with their philosophy on the world. And when I say they, I'm talking about the people that run Facebook, the people that run these social media sites, the people in the corporate media. They're very left-leaning in their beliefs, and they use propaganda to target anybody that disagrees with them. So those on the right, those with conservative or libertarian leanings, are being targeted. President Trump himself has made this most clear by calling out CNN as being fake news. Everything coming from this infrastructure is targeting free speech. That's the bottom line. All we care about is free speech. If they can target any one kind of speech, then they can target all speech, and that's the problem.
It's also not simply a left versus right issue. I think that it does seem to be slightly bent in that direction. But if you look at the recent Facebook purge of like hundreds of alternative media accounts, many of those accounts, I know many of the owners of those sites, they're very progressive. They're anti-establishment, and that I think that's the common thread. But I mean, on Minds, we have a cross-spectrum community. People who believe in free speech across the political spectrum. The media is trying to make it seem like this is a left versus right issue, but that's really not the case. I mean, you'll see people like Chomsky, Glenn Greenwald, people like Abby Martin, Lee Camp over at RT. I mean, they understand that you don't go down the dangerous rabbit hole of censorship, that is going to end up hurting everybody.
Well, that's exactly right. That's 100% true, and I agree with that. I think that one thing that should be said about Minds.com is that you guys just finished a $6 million round of financing with Patrick Byrne, and that's the Overstock.com CEO. And when I saw that press release, it resonated with me because I've been following Patrick Byrne for a long time because he was so vocal about the Wall Street shorts that were targeting his company selectively and unfairly, and he became very much an activist in that area. And I think he was one of the first that said, hey, come on over to Overstock.com and feel free to buy stuff with Bitcoin, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, very value-oriented individual, and Medici Ventures is fully dedicated to advancing blockchain technology, and the investor world is very murky, and so we were set on finding only bringing in groups and people who were aligned in terms of our value structure. Last year, we did an equity crowdfunding round with like 1,500 members of our community. So we're very like community owned. Everything is fully transparent, open source. Anyone can inspect our software. No shady algorithms. I think that, the networks of the future have to be open source. They have to be moving towards decentralization, have to be, privacy focused. These are just going to become given staples of the future of applications that, only now is it starting to really seem important. And same with, free speech content policy. Everything's bubbling up. And so the good news is that it's entering the public consciousness. The bad news is that there's some damage happening in the meantime.
All right. So for those of us that are fed up with Facebook fascism and selective targeting of conservative speech or libertarian speech or any speech at all, what is the recourse? I mean, at this point, is the only recourse to walk away? I mean, many of us can't walk away from YouTube or refuse to walk away from YouTube because it's the biggest town square in the world.
Right.
That I think is to some extent true for Facebook as well. I don't engage on Facebook as much, so my channel's not that huge there, but I'm also on Minds.com. I guess the recourse is to walk away to other platforms like Minds.com, right? I mean, that's ultimately at the end of the day,
part of it.
Have to walk away.
Yeah, I mean, I left Facebook and all of them a while ago. I think that you're tempted to stay where your community is. So if you have a large following on any one network, you worked hard for that. And on Facebook, they just brought the algorithms in, and even if you had 1 million people following your page, you probably only reach like 2 to 3% of them. Those types of algorithms are starting to come into YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and all of them. But it's sort of like a drug addiction, and you need to wean off. You don't have to go cold turkey right away, but you want to be building up your presence on alternative networks that support your values. It's like voting with your dollars. Like, you have to vote with your attention. Where we give our attention is what becomes powerful on the internet. It's like physics almost. So you got to walk the walk. If you care about these issues, doesn't mean you need to go cold turkey, but definitely have to take actions.
Yeah, one of the frustrations, though, that I've had recently is that even when I'm on some of these alternative networks, like take Steemit, for instance, they just did a fork or an upgrade or something about 6 weeks ago, and now I can't post on Steemit. I don't understand what happened. My Steam doesn't work, or I need different Steam. I don't know. And I follow this stuff. Isn't that hilarious? Can you explain it to me? You're smarter than I in this area.
Yeah, that seems like just a blip in the upgrade process. I think that user experience is crucial, especially if any kind of up and coming social networks are going to gain mass adoption. We need to be focusing closely on user experience. With our new funding, we're going that's all we're caring about is it needs to be accessible to everyone. It even needs to be accessible to people who don't know or even care about these issues, because it just needs to be a given underlying infrastructure. Look, your privacy is protected. You're not going to be censored. This should be almost behind the scenes and obvious. Unfortunately, it's becoming the focal point, which, is positive in the, digital rights, digital ethics should be talked about. They need to be talked about. But at the same time, not everybody is going to become an activist. And so you need to appeal to the pop culture. It needs to be accessible. It needs to not be polarized, because there's people all across the spectrum that this needs to appeal to if an alternative network is going to become mainstream.
Absolutely. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be easy to use. My experience on Minds.com so far is that is the case. And I would say it's sort of a hybrid between Facebook and YouTube. It's kind of like Facebook, but easier to use than Facebook. And then you've got these tokens, which is interesting because I've never bought a single token, and I've got, I think, like 40 tokens. Do you want to explain how that works? How can I leverage those tokens? How do I use those tokens? How does it all work?
Yeah, definitely. So at minds.com/token for anyone out there who wants to check it out, that's how you can learn how to get them and use them. So for all of your activity and engagement you receive every day, you're earning tokens. So we issued the Minds token on the Ethereum blockchain, which is a decentralized, almost like world computer that can't get taken down. So we're not relying on any proprietary payment intermediaries, which are a huge risk factor for any company. And you earn these tokens for your engagement or for making referrals or for just being active. And then you can use them to boost your posts. One token will give you 1,000 extra impressions on whatever content you want to boost. There's a little boost button on the bottom right of your posts. You can also wire other users on a one-time or monthly basis to support them. Creators can set reward tiers, so sort of Patreon-ish, but without the everything's open source and decentralized. Patreon is using Stripe, actually. And you can also use it to get some premium features. And so we've created this fuel, a decentralized economic fuel for the company that can't get taken down. It's a great way to incentivize and reward the community. We just think that, look, the creators, the people of the network need to get rewarded. They need to not be punished with algorithms and censorship, but be given more of a voice. And, I think safety online is very important. We have a responsibility to give people tools to protect their experience. And at the same time, censorship is not the answer, as long as it's legal, to combating these ideas. And we have lots of peer-reviewed studies that show that censorship can make things worse on the internet. And it seems that these big social giants really don't care about the greater social problem and addressing it head on. They just care about their short-term PR.
Yeah, and they're finding out that isn't working very well in the court of public opinion. People are pretty damn sick of the Zuck in his little Illuminati-lined jacket. I don't know if you ever saw that. He was
inside a sweatshirt,
sweating bullets.
That is a warm hoodie.
Yeah, no, it's a thick hoodie. It's a company hoodie. We print our mission on the inside.
What? Oh my
really?
God, the inside of the hoodie, everybody. Take a moment. What is it? Making the
world more open and connected.
Oh my God, it's like a secret cult. Look at that, making the world open and connected, stream, graph, platform, and this weird symbol in the middle that is probably for the Illuminati.
Here's the difference between Facebook and you guys. Facebook, I think, is probably started or created in part by DARPA, or at least Google is, and you guys are not. I mean, maybe at the end of the day, that's the big difference. They're the 800-pound gorilla, and everybody's starting to recognize them as an abusive gorilla.
Yeah, so, there's nuance everywhere, and I think that it's easy to simplify. I mean, I think there are definitely some CI-connected venture firms that got involved with Facebook and Google and all of them. And at the same time, there is inner war happening in these companies. For instance, like Peter Thiel is on the board of Facebook. He's a known libertarian, Trump supporter, and he sits down with guys like Dave Rubin. I mean, he clearly sort of supports free speech, but he's sort of in the matrix, in the beast. And we know that there's, employees leaving. All Instagram and WhatsApp co-founders just left because they hate Facebook and Zuckerberg. They know that they sold out all of their users' privacy, and they're sort of destroying those companies. So that there is rebellion happening. There are really smart people in these companies that, we want to help transform them, honestly, because, the idea that Facebook or Google are going to become MySpace, it's possible, but much more unlikely because of the grasp that they have on everybody through their phones and everything. So I do want to be proactive and constructive and hope that they transform. It's very unlikely because their revenue models are completely reliant on surveillance in order to survive. So they have to follow you around in order to make money.
Yeah, and sell your data. I mean, we know that literally sell your data. Well, let me ask you this. I want to ask you about the future of the internet, because we can see what's going on in the EU. In September, the European Parliament voted in favor of the copyright directive that will make it very difficult for people like me, and well, it'll make it very difficult for anybody in the EU to share information in the way that many of us do on YouTube with our video news updates and reports and our documentaries. Because what this would do is it would force online platforms to monitor uploaded content and take down anything that includes an extract of copyrighted work. And I'm reading that directly from Forbes. So in the EU, they don't have fair use like we do. We have fair use, so I can show copyrighted work or snippets from interviews on CNN or wherever, as long as I'm enhancing that content with editorial or new information. Then it's fair use. But in the EU, they don't have that, and they're going to kill the internet as we know it. And you know as well as I do, they would love to see that happen here. So what does the future of the internet look like?
Yeah, I mean, pushing all content uploaded to all websites through some sort of draconian content ID filter is very scary. Certainly, those machines are not going to be able to detect the fair use argument well. And so, this is the problem with centralized silos in Web 2.0. So this is why Web 3 is emerging. It's more peer-to-peer, decentralized. We're actually working on a prototype for something that would kind of interoperate with the main Minds hub called Nomad. You can find the source code for it, for the prototype, at github.com/minds/nomad. And it leverages Ethereum public-private key for ID, and then a protocol called DAT, which is a peer-to-peer distributed protocol, so that nothing's on our servers, and it's just fully decentralized. So this is really where things need to go. This is still very new technology. It's going to take time for it to mature, but we are focusing on it because we do know that things need to move in that direction. Now, there is some nuance involved in fully decentralized versus centralized. It's not as if decentralized equals good, centralized equals bad. There are benefits to some central servers. For instance, if you want to delete something, in some cases, you might want to be able to do that. On the blockchain, which is immutable, and on a torrent system, when it gets out in the wild, it's out in the wild. You can't just take it back. No takebacks in that world. But so what we think is that you really want to put the user in control, and ultimately the user should decide how they want their data treated. There's also complications for copyright with blockchain and distributed systems, but they're necessary, and so we need to understand and build tools that give users as much control as possible, and that's about the best that we can do.
Well, I think it's great, and it's just wonderful to have options out there like Minds.com, because people are starting to walk away, or at least get fed up with these other guerrilla social media platforms. And why don't you tell people how they can sign up for Minds.com? It's free, right? You don't need to buy tokens. You don't need to know anything about cryptocurrency. Just explain how that works. How do you sign up for Minds.com?
Yeah, go to Minds.com, or we're in the Android and app stores still, and you can also go check out Minds.com/token. You should follow me at Ottman. You should find SGT report on there, and look, it's just supporting the networks that you believe in with regards to principles is essential. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to go all in, but metrics and activity. This is how all of the top apps power structures are built. The more active users on the app, the more powerful the app is. This is how companies grow. This is how companies get more funding. This is how the whole thing works. So it's I try not to pitch too much, because I do think that our mission speaks for itself, which is why a lot of people have just picked up on it naturally. And we're very community generated. Everything is community driven. So if you're a developer, reach out as well. If you're just a user, I recommend just signing in, throwing up some content, and boost it. And you will see, even if you don't have a big following, that you'll start to get better engagement, most likely on Minds, even than these big behemoths, because we actually have a vent out of the void. Those networks, you could be on there for years and never really gain a following unless you have some sort of release valve.
Yeah, well, one of the things I like about Minds.com, guys, I'm on Minds.com, as I mentioned, and one of the things I like is you can upload your video content. I'm really talking to YouTubers now. You can upload your video content so it's on the proprietary Minds system, so that even if YouTube deletes your video, like they did to my Christopher Bolin interview about 9/11, it'll still exist on Minds.com. The other thing you can do, which I do quite often, it's real easy. You just take the embed code for your video and you just cut and paste that into a new post, and all the metadata shows up. Everything you wrote, all the copyright, the music you used, the little snippet you wrote about what the video is about, it all just shows up magically. You hit post, easiest thing in the world. So you guys have made the platform very easy to use.
Thanks. Yeah, let's keep it going. Everyone reach out if you have suggestions. We are evolving according to what the community wants. This isn't, we're just starting on a much more grassroots, authentic level than any of these other networks did. There's no reason for us to drift from that principle. Because if we're not making the creators happy, then we're doing something wrong.
All right. Well, Bill, I want to thank you for reaching out. I'm really glad we had this conversation because I really see it as a battle between David and Goliath. Kind of you guys over at Minds.com, the folks at BitChute, the folks even at Steemit, even though I can't post there for whatever reason now. It's all a David versus Goliath story. It's us versus YouTube and Google and Facebook and Zuckerberg and these well-heeled billionaires. And it's the same thing that we're doing on YouTube, many of us telling truth every single day. It's a David Goliath. It's us versus CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, owned by a billionaire named Jeff Bezos. It's a David Goliath story, right? Truth versus fake news. At the end of the day, I firmly believe that's what we are all engaged in right here. It's a David versus Goliath story. Our guest has been Bill Ottman, the CEO of Minds.com. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, thank you so much for your support. Do check me out at Minds.com. You can follow me on Twitter, of course. And for real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com. Thanks for listening, guys. God bless.
We trusted them. Well, we see now that our trust was completely misplaced, but I am sure we will win. But we need everybody to understand the battle plan, their battle plan. Our battle plan is simple. We take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness. Instead, we expose them, and once light hits those dark areas, they just disintegrate.